Stephen Hawking, he made a very interesting point. He said that before the Big Bang, there was nothing. Now, people ask the question, how is that possible? Right? How can there be nothing before the Big Bang? There has got to be something. But then, Stephen Hawking understood something very interesting. He said there is no time before the Big Bang. So it has to be nothing. There is no time. And one very important point that he brought out, and which we must be astonished by, is that the world we lived in apparently appears to be a space-time. In other words, there is a space and there is a time. But when time becomes zero, then suddenly you are at a loss. We are at a loss, right? Where am I? What happened to reality? How can it be disappear? Interesting, right? That's why I've always understood reality to be I, and I alone. And space-time, which is a construct of my mind, not just a construct of my mind, a construct of the universe which is reflected from the me, is entirely based on space and time. We must therefore really get to the point that space-time actually is a kind of self-construct. You can call it an illusion, but not really an illusion because we lived in it. But yet, mysteriously, we constructed it and we lived in it. Gosh, what I've just stated is really the problem. We self-construct space and time. I mean, time is a kind of imagination in our mind. And because we are moving slowly, because the atoms of our body is moving slowly, we notice a time in motion. So it's a self-construct. And because there is time, there is space, because you need time to walk. And because you need time to walk there, the space is created. Or the other way around, if you have space, you also create time. So when we understand that space-time is self-construct, then we realize that it is not real. I go back to the Torah. See, when God created our heaven and earth, He said, let there be a light. And it was this light that shines from the observer. And it's this light that constructs the world we live in. And indeed, it's true because our two eyes watch the world. And by watching the world, we create space. And, of course, time. So the observer created an illusion. Not exactly an illusion, of course, because we live in that illusion, but what I meant is that it is created by us, by the observer. But then before the observer, before let there be light, there is the awesome, powerful breath. Because the Torah says that let the breath of God overshadow the waters. And then God speaks. So God speaks, let there be light. So let there be light is actually a consequence of the voice, a consequence of the breath. And that is the reason why I said that, and why I believe that thoughts cannot solve our problem. It cannot because of the fact that it is self-construct. And no doubt it seems to be very real because we live in it. So because we live in it, we see people talking and thinking too. And we see events in our life, and we notice that it's somewhat kind of empty at times. And there are grievous moments when we feel that the events of life are against us. Earthquakes, for example, hurricanes. But they are actually self-construct. But it will never be sorted out, meaning that even if I have a machine right now that can detect a hurricane, can warn me against earthquake, or perhaps a fantastic machine that can actually glue ourselves, glue the earth itself so that there will be an earthquake. But it won't solve the problem. Why? Because what we are doing is that we are creating space-time only. And space-time ultimately has to be returned back. Gosh, it has to be returned back. What does it mean by that? Now, notice the Torah again. When God created heaven and earth, there is a first day, a second day, a third day, a fourth day, a fifth day. So mankind, or the earth itself, evolved, so to speak, and became solidified. Ultimate creation was man himself, which was created on the sixth day. But don't forget the Sabbath. Don't forget the seventh day, because on the seventh day, the breath pushed out, and all that is in the light have to return back. Just like God said. He said that, and God ceases on the seventh day. The very construct of your mind all ceases on the seventh day, because space-time is borrowed, it's an illusion, it's self-construct, and therefore on the seventh day it has to cease off. So there is really no use at all actually to solve our problem using space-time. Okay, let's say for example that you are thinking of wealth, and you think that wealth can solve your problem. Okay, so you work very hard through the years to get wealth, and you notice very importantly that your wealth does increase. Okay, it does increase. But the point is that that wealth at the final moment will still cease. So you have not solved the problem at all. All the effort that you put in, well, it has come to you. Whatever you sowed, you have reaped. But the problem is that you have reached space-time. That's right, and space-time have got to be returned back. So the only solution in life is actually breath. You have to return to breath. From the light, from the observer, you must realize the breath. That's the secret of life. The solution cannot be found in space-time. The solution is found in breath. Why? Because God created this world by the voice. So every step of the way, the first day, second day, third day, He spoke. So He created. The whole universe is founded of breath. Breath is the essence of I am. Breath is before space-time, and breath will last. But note very importantly, although breath is beneath the thoughts, but it's the thoughts. We live in world thoughts. But breath is the solution. So we have to nullify the thoughts and return back to the breath, where the solution is. But we cannot see breath. We only see thoughts. And that's the reason why you have 6 days. Second day, third day, fourth day. As each day passes by, the thoughts gets nearer to the solution. But isn't the solution yet. You still have to have a breath again in order to bring to the third day. Then you have to have a breath again. Then you need to bring it to the fourth day, fifth day, sixth day. But finally, it still returned to breath. Finally, you will realize that in the Genesis 2, finally, the man himself became the breath. And God breathed into man the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So finally and ultimately, when we finally realized breath is blowing within us, we are the breath. I am. When God breathed into man the breath of life, into man, what it means is that we become the solution itself. We become the breath. But the point I have to emphasize is that we cannot see breath. So we're still seeing thoughts, but now in a better world. Forever we are engaged in thoughts, and forever breath is a solution. But the thoughts gets better and better, leading us to the solution. When we engage in the breath again and again and again through the days. And finally, we inherit the thoughts because we become. Because the thoughts itself become the breath. But yet, of course, we must realize we are still lived in thoughts. So although we have inherited the thoughts as breath, there are more thoughts to come. And thus, the journey of breathing and the journey of thinking never ends as we get purer and purer into beingness. Thoughts will always have to return back to the ground. Thoughts will always have to be returned back to space-time because it doesn't belong to us. But breath is mine. So when it finally becomes breath, it is mine. It is my legacy. It is my inheritance. What is it? It is me. And although we live day 1, day 2, right up to day 7, we realize that finally we inherit these thoughts as breath because we have been persistent to voice ourselves, persistent to breathe, to communicate me to me. And no doubt, on the 6th day, man, the thoughts itself became the best as it is. But yet, as I said, these thoughts, no matter how best it is, it will be returned to the ground because it doesn't belong to me. Whatever man thinks of himself, it will be returned back to the ground. Whatever man has built in the world of thoughts, he has to return to the ground. But there is a great inheritance when the thoughts has become mine. Because only what is mine will return to me and will be me forever. And Jesus said, Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. But unto me the things that are mine. In other words, he's saying that if you acquire a coin that belongs to Caesar, you will still return to Caesar. You can't take it back. And if you have acquired some great mansion in the name of God, you still have to return it back to the ground, because the mansion that you have acquired is a thought, is a space-time, and you have to return it back to the ground. It doesn't belong to you. Only what belongs to me will be mine. And how does it become mine? How does it become belonging to me? Yes, it becomes belonging to me only when I breathe the thought into me. That's the tough part. Breathe the thought into me. And that's where the thought has become me and will never leave me again. It is written on Genesis 2, God breathed into man the breath of life, and man became living. That's right. You may fight for thoughts. That's right. You may want to win a war with thoughts. You may want to feel good and strong and great because you believe yourself to be great, but that doesn't make a difference at all. You have to return it back to the ground. Finally, you have to breathe the thought right into me. That's where the livingness is. That's where it will never leave you, because it is mine. And it is written, the final breath that leads into me is only taking place on the Sabbath day. That's why it's important to take a rest on the Sabbath day. And what is the Sabbath day? The Sabbath day is the opposite of two triads. It is a nullification. You must reach to the point of nullification before life springs forth from your soul and is your life. The religious people are very obsessed with the idea of thinking. As I mentioned in my previous video, they are very obsessed with the idea that God loves them. They're very obsessed with the idea that I'm a child of God and that I'm going to heaven. And I must remember all the time that I'm a child of God. But what they've forgotten is that all these that they are gaining is just mere thoughts, space-time. You may call it illusions. These thoughts must breathe into me before they become alive. And as long as you just carry them as thoughts, they will have to be returned back to the ground. You see, the Torah is a secret. It writes the truth in a secret way, so that those who do not wish to research and investigate will never find the truth. Even if you don't know the Torah, it is all right. If you have been very self-authentic, you've been very, very authentic, and you have always interpreted your own dreams. You've done that, then you have found a communication with yourself. And this communication with me is very important, because one day you discover how to breathe me into me. And that's where life is found. Why did God bring Israel to the place at Mount Sinai? And why did Moses insisted that they must keep the Ummah every day count the Omer until they reach the 49th day, so that on the 50th day they can remember. That's right, 7 times 7, so that on the 50th day they can remember that is the moment when God will speak to them. It's the moment when they could hear the voice of the breath speaking to them. That's the most important point of all. Can you hear the breath within you speaking to you? You can, if you are very, very self-authentic. It involves a lot of meditation to discover that breath is a voice, and the voice is speaking to you every moment. And when you inherited this truth, you have inherited life. For I am the way, I am is the truth, and I am is the life.